Hello and happy Halloween. Welcome back to NerdDumb. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite genres, horror. Yes, it's that time of year, so you're obligated to watch some horror movies or some Halloween movies, right? Now I know Ernest, Scared Stupid, and Charlie Brown's Pumpkin are some of my favorites. Of course, Nightmare Before Christmas is a Halloween and Christmas movie. Smart play, Disney. But horror holds a special place in my heart. Especially during COVID, I found the channel Dead Meat, and I truly attribute all of my love to horror to that channel and for really showing me the beauty and artistry that is on display inside of horror movies. Very particularly, I fell in love with 80s horror. Of course, I would fall in love with 80s horror since my favorite music is either metal or synthwave. And synthwave is very inspired by 80s classic movies and most importantly, John Carpenter's soundtracks. So since then, I have been watching a bunch of horror movies, especially 80s horror movies, and again, I fell in love with them. I like rewatching all the classics, and since it's that time of year, I'm going to share my top 5 favorite horror movies that I hold the right to change next year when I do this list again. It's just what I do. But this is right now is my top 5 list. Now, of course, I do love the classic Universal monsters. They hold a special place in my heart. There's also a couple of other ones that we'll mention down the list as well. But first, if you would like to, feel free to subscribe. Also, feel free to smash the like button. Really does help out the channel get pushed out to new people. And if you found me for the first time, I welcome you to NerdDumb's. Thank you so much for checking us out. And without further ado, let's get to the list. My number 5 pick for my favorite horror movies is Saw. When this came out in 2003, we saw it in theaters twice in one night, and I was blown away by, of course, the ending, but the whole movie in general. Really diving into what it means to be alive, of taking every day for granted, really. And these are people that aren't the best of people. These are people who are really messing with society, who are messing with their loved ones, who are kind of messed up people, I guess, for the most part. There's a couple people who are kind of innocent that get caught up in the fray. So I'm not going to say Jigsaw is a freaking hero, but it's kind of portrayed as if he thinks he is. And it's got a mixture of kind of Seven aesthetics from the 90s mixed with like 2000s new metal editing, which was really a sign of the times, on a super low budget with James Wan directing, and the acting is fantastic. The puzzles that they make really were eye-opening, and there's a couple of the new metal editing techniques that's kind of cringe looking back, but just the overall story, the overall aesthetic, the overall quality was truly remarkable back in the day. And if there's one thing you're going to notice about this list, it is that on a shoestring budget, ingenuity and artistry really do take a hold and take the lead on these movies. And that's one thing I can say about horror in general. You know, you don't get a lot of budget and you have to problem solve on the fly and with as much camera trickery as possible. And kind of, I would say horror, and especially like Saw, really does boil down movie making to what it really is, and it's a magic trick. So by having, the ending the way it is with Saw, really was awesome to take a look at all the events of the movie that it showed you and kind of look back on it and be like, wow, that really did happen. Yeah, it really did give me the clue. And I wasn't paying attention, that kind of thing. So Saw 1 led to a huge franchise that kind of turned into torture porn, in my opinion. It cared more about the puzzles, about the kills, about the grotesque than it did the characters, the story, and the detective work, serial killer, thriller, crime drama of it all. And I think that's what made me really sad about the Saw franchise, to see the quality kind of go down. I haven't seen a Saw movie since it ended, probably since I worked at Blockbuster. That was a while ago. But yeah, man, Saw 1, amazing movie, and that's why it's number 5 on the list. Number 4 on my list is Friday the 13th, the original from 1980. You're going to notice a pattern on this list, and it's that I love slasher movies. I think they're so hokey. I think they're so predictable. But the way that they create and stalk, they create tension. They stalk their prey. They then kill them. The dialogue is usually really hokey, and it's just more of a fun, which is kind of ironic to hear me say fun and people are being murdered on screen. But it's kind of like you as the audience is in on the joke, and you're in on the hokiness and the fun. Friday the 13th is really the first one for me that, again, shoestring budget, low budget, but it has this amazing gore factor, and that's due to the brilliant Tom Savini. He was able to do some really grotesque things in there that he studied from like Vietnam era war books. And it was like disgusting, but at the same time so kind of campy in the same way. I will always love the arrow through the neck of Kevin Bacon. I think that's truly disgusting, and to have the blood, the story of the blood spurting into his mouth, and I can't imagine not laughing in that situation, but he held it together. And the whole story, it's kind of, predictable summer camp fun. And then it turns into the horror movie with the mom actually being the killer. Everyone forgets that the first killer in Friday the 13th franchise is actually Jason Voorhees' mom. And he hasn't come back until the next movie, which all these movies are right now streaming on Shudder. So if you haven't seen any of the Friday the 13ths, I think up till Jason Goes to New York is on Shudder right now. So be sure to check those out if you haven't seen them before. But yeah, man, Friday the 13th, the original, I love it. It's awesome. Go watch it. Number 3 on my top 5 horror movie list is Fright Knight, the original. I actually haven't seen the remake. What I like about this one is that it kind of blends the old with the new of the 80s. So what it does is it kind of blends the Universal Monsters vampire lore with the dude who is like the scary movie host guy, and it's blending it into this 80s aesthetic, this 80s world of vampires. And it's a lot different than the Universal rules per se. But I love that it's kind of Hitchcockian, as in he sees his neighbor. It's like Rear Window. He sees his neighbor doing things, and he then is like, his parents are against him and saying that he's lying and all this other stuff. And then he gets the actor, and he's like, I'm just an actor. I'm not really a vampire killer. It kind of reminds me of Fade to Black from the 80s as well, where it kind of brings in the Universal classic horror tropes, but then it puts it into a modern world. So it's kind of like someone's a horror fan, and then they get into a horror situation. Not looking at you, Salem's Lot. Not looking at you. Chris Sarandon, playing the vampire next door, does an amazing job. He's so seductive and good looking and charming, and he's exactly how a vampire in suburbia would be to try to fit in. It's just a fun ride. The only part of the movie that I don't like is his friend, and it's just because he's just so outlandishly annoying. No offense, dude, if you're still out there. It's just outlandishly annoying to me, and I kind of like skipping past those parts. But I do wish those parts hit a little bit harder, and then this would be probably up higher on my list. But again, I love the trope, the old school Universal monster, Universal vampire rules that are put into this modern tale. And I can't believe that's the lady who was then later in Married with Children as the neighbor. It's just kind of funny looking back. I'm like, oh yeah, that was Al Bundy's neighbor the whole time. So yeah, that Fright Night is number 3 on my list. Really, really fun. Awesome movie. Number 2 is the classic 1978 Halloween by John Carpenter. This movie was, it wasn't the first slasher. I think you can kind of say that was Psycho with Hitchcock. And then to have the first person view of the murder happen, it kind of was done with Hitchcock as well. But what they were able to do was that first scene with the kid and then dial up the tension so much, and to have you in the mask with the kid actually doing the act at the very beginning is just so sinister, and it's kind of haunting. And then the whole movie, again, the budget is not huge. The location is Pasadena and is pretending to be Illinois. The way that they're able to dial up the tension slowly, and then until finally it's kind of like a release when he finally does start laying waste to these teenage kids, especially in the house. Now, it doesn't have a huge body count, but what it does have is amazing lighting. The part where, the mask, the ingenuity that they're able to do with this mask and turn it into such an iconic picture look, and the way that they were using lighting to hide him in certain spaces and then reveal him in certain places as well. The sound design of the breathing, it's kind of like Darth Vader. They from the sound of him breathing in the mask where he is. It's such a, I don't know how to say it, bare bones type movie that it really does show you what you can do with a very small budget to create a compelling and heart-pounding story and adventure. Again, what you're able to do on a shoestring budget is just truly astounding, and the ingenuity and the talent of everyone who works on the movie shines through the screen in this one. From the look of it to the sound of it, even the score. The score is going to be classic until the end of time because of how stripped down it is. It's purely 3 chords and 3 notes. That's it, on a piano. But what you get out of it is a sense of creepiness and a sense of danger. I would say danger. Michael Myers is a shark out for the kill, but he also likes to mess with his food a little bit. Hence the tombstone. So that is why Halloween 1978 is number 2 on my list. Next up, I'm going to actually throw in some honorable mentions. Honorable mentions for me means that they should be on this list, but I really love too many of these movies to have them on here. The first one is definitely Alien by Ridley Scott. Not a very high budget movie, but what they're able to do with creating of the xenomorph, which is again an iconic creature. The artistry on screen, the true fear of space is on display here. And it also creates something of sci-fi horror, which is something that's a little bit different, especially in the 70s. It may have been something early on in the 50s when it's like, War of the Worlds and so on. But what it does, again, uses the darkness to mess with you. It makes you think that you see the xenomorph around, and the creature is just so freaky. And it's truly a horror movie. And it's crazy to see James Cameron make Aliens, which is an action movie. It's like, oh, we had one of these before. Now we're going to have a whole planet covered by them. So, and again, great creation, an amazing, unique design, and an awesome atmosphere of space, which also made probably Dead Space, the gaming franchise. I wish it would come back. Being well done, of course. Next honorable mention is kind of ironic that I said James Cameron, because The Terminator is another movie that I consider a horror movie. Let me explain. To me, this is a cyberpunk slasher. So cyberpunk is a genre that I dearly love. I really do love cyberpunk. I think it may have been diluted a little bit, but this movie really does create the feeling of a cyberpunk 80s cyberpunk future. And what does that future do into the 80s, trying to kill Sarah Connor? Again, kind of what James Cameron did with T2. Here he did it with himself in T1, where it's a slasher movie, and it's a slasher movie with a gun, which, say what you will, and there is a reason that these movies are in our lexicon from now on. I'll be back. But yeah, in that movie, there's just a sense of dread. There's a sense of that Arnold is basically unstoppable. He is indestructible. It's kind of disgusting, the parts where like his eye is revealed and everything, even though that part looks terrible. And that's why, Terminator's an honorable mention. And the last honorable mention is Creepshow. I do love the original Creepshow so much because it's so odd. It's so out there. It's a wild, wild movie, and it's an anthology movie. So what's cool about that is that I grew up with Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt was an anthology show with the Crypt Keeper. It was really a comic book come to life in the form of these little stories. And what's cool is you're able to get an entire front to back story in a very short amount of time. Now, recently, these have been also a Creepshow TV show, a couple of Creepshow sequels, as well as kind of like VHS has kind of become an anthology series as well. And then we have, of course, like Black Mirror, which is, again, kind of cyberpunk horror. And all this kind of leads back to maybe a Twilight Zone, where it was short TV shows, but a full entire story. But just Creepshow is a great 80s movie, and I can't imagine walking into a theater and seeing Creepshow and being, I don't know, I think that'd be crazy to walk into a theater and watch Creepshow at that time and have this. I think Creepshow 2 was pretty good too. The final story in Creepshow 2 was truly, truly unique. And yeah, I just have a fondness for that movie. I don't know why. I can't explain that one. And finally, my number one horror movie at this very moment is John Carpenter's The Thing. Yes, John Carpenter shows up twice on this list, but this time with The Thing, he actually doesn't do the score. The score is so amazing. That plucking of the bass guitar, dum 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 dum, truly awesome. This movie does show in horror what horror is also about. It is about societal worries. It's about human worries on a grand scale, blown up to 11. And what does The Thing do? It takes over your persona. It takes you over. You are no longer a thing. Something else has become you. And in an age of individualism, that is actually quite frightening. That's actually kind of messed up. And the movie does keep you guessing throughout the entire thing of who is who, what is what. And there's a couple of great jump scares with it, with the monster, with the gimmicks, with the head crawling around as the spider. I love the scene where they're testing the blood. That jump scare was insane because you expect it to be at a different time. It truly surprises you. It's kind of funny looking back though, because you can see the fake hand holding the vial of blood. You can see how fake it is, but we'll get beyond that. This has another unique, amazing, practical effect monster. And again, I love the 80s for this very reason. Practical effects, puppetry, all of that is, I think it's movie magic. I think that is movie magic, and that's something that we are missing nowadays. Again, not a huge budget, I mean bigger than Halloween, and definitely a lot more fire, burning, special effects. The spider head is just so disgusting to me, having the head and the eyes popping out. It's remarkable what they're able to do with this movie, and like I said, they're able to keep you guessing the whole time. You think it's going to be one thing, and it just turns into something else entirely. The chest cavity opening up, and then the hands getting taken out. Oh my god. There's a lot to talk about with this movie, and more so the ending. What do you think happened at the end of The Thing? Who is The Thing? Do you think Childs is The Thing, and that Kurt Russell's character is testing him by having him drink from it? Because if he was Childs, then maybe he wouldn't. There's also a possibility that they just don't care anymore. They don't care, they made it through, and they're going to die anyways, so what's the point? Might as well just have a swig. So are neither of them The Thing, or is Childs The Thing? Are both of them The Thing? Let me know down in the comments below. And that is my top 5 plus a bunch of honorable mention horror movies for this year, 2024. What are your thoughts? What are your favorite horror movies? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. Also, feel free to smash the like button. Really does help out the channel once again. Yeah, happy Halloween. Have a fun time. Be safe, not be sorry. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care.